All rise. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The special session of the Court of Common Pleas of Crawford County for the purpose of dedicating the Crawford County Judicial Center is now brought to order. President Judge Anthony J. Badaro, Judge John F. Spataro, Judge Mark D. Stevens are presiding. And presiding, we have the honor of Madam Justice Deborah McCloskey Todd, representing the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, sitting with our court. Please come to order.
Good morning and welcome. This is a special session of court for the purpose of dedicating this wonderful Crawford County Judicial Center, and I do welcome everybody here. It's obviously a beautiful building that we occupy today. Because of the nature of this session, it's going to be a little more relaxed than a typical court session. What that means is it'll be less formal. If you want to take photographs, you can do that, and obviously there are some folks from the press doing that right now. Just try to watch the flashes if you could do that. And you may applaud if you wish to applaud at appropriate times. So we'll try to keep everything somewhat more relaxed because of the happy nature of this session. We'll start with the invocation. I would welcome the Reverend Tom Trosho to do the invocation. Father.
My friends, let us take a moment, bow our heads, and ask God to bless us all. Almighty and eternal God, you have revealed your glory to all the nations, God of power and might, wisdom and justice. Through you authority is rightly administered, laws are enacted, and judgments is decreed. Father in heaven, we thank you for this judicial center. Bless this building and all who use it. Grant that all that takes place here will build up a spirit of community among us and lead to the well-being of all our citizens, that we may be blessed in the knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your law. May we be preserved in union and in peace. Father, we praise you and we ask you to bless us through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Judge Stevens will introduce the special guest. Judge?
Thank you very much, Judge Badaro. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to introduce, instead of trying to go through the list of folks, there's lots of folks here, many of whom would be classified as special guests. I'm going to hit the judges, not literally, of course, but hit the judges who are here with us today. And thank the various elected representatives, elected officials from the county and beyond that are here with us today. So with that, in no particular order except that, not to be confused with who's up here, I'd start with Madam Justice Deborah McCloskey Todd, Judge Badaro and Judge Spataro and myself. And then in the jury box, and again, not going in the order in which they're sitting, but Senior Judge John Boza from Erie County, President Judge Maureen Skirta from Warren County, Senior Judge Paul Millen from Warren County, Judge Stephanie Dimitrovich from Erie County, Senior Judge William Morgan from Warren County, Judge Christopher St. John from Mercer County, Judge Daniel Wallace from Mercer County, President Judge Oliver Lobaugh from Venango County, President Judge John Tresilla from Erie County, and then magisterial judges Lincoln Zillhaver, Rita Marwood, Sam Pendolino, and Senior Magisterial Judge Michael Rossi, who are all here with us as well. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Judge. Judge Spatero is going to tell us about the history of Crawford County courthouses. Judge?
Thank you, Judge Vidaro. I'd like first to thank Attorney Thomas Joseph, my good friend and law clerk, for helping to provide me with the source material that relates to the history of the courthouses to Crawford County, bringing us to today. The very first session of court in Crawford County, covering the period from 1800 until 1805, these sessions took place not in a public building or in a courthouse, but instead in the home of William Dick. William Dick is reported to have been a prominent pioneer. Mr. Dick had constructed his home on the northeast corner of Water Street and Cherry Alley. At that time, in the year 1800, Meadville was the location, the judicial district for the counties of Crawford, Erie, Warren, Venango, and Mercer. Sessions of court were held in the upper story of Mr. Dick's residence. Now, there's some dispute about whether it was the upper story or the lower story, but the point is, court is being held in Mr. Dick's home. These sessions included the very first jury trial held in January of 1801, when a Mr. Hugh Johnston was charged with assault and battery, and he was ultimately acquitted of that charge. Now, just for a moment, imagine in your home, sessions of court taking place, a jury trial in January in Crawford County, at a time when transportation was by horseback and the streets were unpaved. Well, perhaps to the relief of William Dick's family, on May 5, 1804, the Pennsylvania legislature enacted a law that required the construction of a courthouse on what is now known as Diamond Park. It used to be referred to as a public square. And this explains the move from Water Street to the park, the Diamond Park. Construction began later in the year of a two-story hewed log structure, with the first story serving for a jail and the second as a courtroom. The first county building stood on the northwest corner of Cherry Alley. This is west or across the Diamond from the present courthouse. This site, the site of the very first courthouse, is where the yellow building known as the Founder's House, currently owned by Allegheny College, is situated, and used by the college and the Meadville Chamber of Commerce for offices. So now we go 20 years later. Construction then began in 1824 on a new brick, rather than hewed log, courthouse at the very location of the present courthouse. So it moved across the Diamond, and there it remained until today. Although smaller in size, obviously, than the present courthouse, and located toward the north of the present courthouse, this structure was described as a, quote, very handsome structure of brick and cut stone, surmounted by a cupola, or belfry, with a Doric order front consisting of 4 columns. The 1824 courthouse was not completed until 1828 and was only a one-story building, with county offices in the front and the courtroom in the rear. This building was used until 1867, when it was then removed to make room for the next courthouse structure that was dedicated in January of 1870. During the construction of the 1870 courthouse, sessions of court were held, because the old courthouse was demolished, in the Richmond block on Chestnut Street, where the Montgomery Ward store was located and which currently is utilized by the body firm, a health and fitness facility. Construction of the 1870 courthouse began in September of 1867. Now keep in mind, this is just 2 years after the conclusion of the Civil War. All the county offices were located on the first floor, with the second floor housing the courtroom, which measured approximately 70 by 55 feet, embellished by black walnut finish and a frescoed ceiling. The 1870 courthouse was found by the Commonwealth to have been a, quote, well-planned and constructed building, admirably adapted to the public purposes in the future for which it was designed. And so it was, as this structure was in continuous use from 1870 until construction of the present courthouse that was dedicated on October 23, 1954. The 1954 courthouse, the courthouse we're so familiar with, was a major remodeling and enlargement of the 1870 courthouse with north and south wings attached. So much so that the 1954 courthouse was considered to have been entirely new, but for certain of the walls, foundations, and part of the floors of the 1870 courthouse. The outside of the 1954 courthouse, our courthouse, was dramatically altered to the colonial style that we see today. Very much different. If you look at photographs of the 1870 courthouse, very much different from the Renaissance style of the 1870 courthouse of pressed brick, stone trimmings, an iron roof, and an impressive dome topped by a figure representing justice holding the scales. The sessions of court continued to be held in the 1870 courtroom during the renovation period until completion of what we have known all these years as Courtroom 1, located on the south wing of the 1954 courthouse. I came by that last revelation from talking with Attorney R. Charles Thomas, who is the most senior active member of our bar and a most distinguished attorney. He and I spoke yesterday, and I asked him, well, what took place while the courthouse was being built? Where was court held? And to the best of his recollection, court continued on until Courtroom 1 was available. Now, the dedication booklet for the 1954 courthouse described the structure as, quote, a thing of beauty and of dignity of which the county may justly be proud, adding that, quote, it is universally agreed that the colonial style of the courthouse conforms best with the setting of the building and with the best architecture in Meadville. With the construction of this, our Judicial Center, we enter a new era, markedly different from the days when William Dick's home was used as a courthouse. The 1885 history of Crawford County noted that the first courthouses were so regularly used, quote, when the court was in session and when it was not in session, for judicial, educational, religious, and social purposes, that the doors of the pioneer courthouses, like the gates of God's mercy, stood open day and night. The doors of the first courthouse, quote, swung on easy hinges, end quote, and was, quote, a sort of forum whither all classes of people went for the purpose of gossiping and telling or hearing something new. Look around you. So much different than today. Our Judicial Center is an impressive building, consistent with our needs and our place in time and in history. We are very fortunate to have such a facility, a structure utilitarian in design and built in conformity with current trends toward greater efficiency, productivity, and of course, security. Even the name Judicial Center, rather than courthouse, evinces a departure from tradition and a move toward current technological modernity. Our Judicial Center is a major leap forward. As well, for those of us whose careers began and then grew within the walls of the courthouse, we cannot help but already feel a touch of nostalgia for days gone by. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Obviously, a structure like this can't happen without the support of the county commissioners, and we had the support of 3 separate boards leading up to this building being dedicated today. The current chairperson of the commissioners, Commissioner Francis Wiederspan, is going to make some comments. Commissioner?
Good morning, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this special day in Crawford County. On behalf of my fellow commissioners and the people of our great county, I extend a special welcome to our distinguished guests, state and local judges, federal, state, and local elected officials and their staff, county staff and employees, and the many people that played a part in the planning and construction of this Crawford County Judicial Center, members of the news media, and of course, arts industry. Thank you all for being a part of this special day in the history of Crawford County. This building is a result of a process that had its start in 2009, 2010, with the selection of a design team of Weber Murphy Fox, assigning them with the task of assisting the county with developing a plan for addressing the existing courthouse. During the summer of 2011, a Citizens Advisory Committee was appointed for their input in the development of these plans. Through many meetings and discussions with Murphy Fox, input from the Citizens Advisory Committee, county elected officials, and their staff, we have this building, the Crawford County Judicial Center, that we were here to dedicate today. Thank you all for the countless hours and contribution to the successful end to that participation. Because of you, Crawford County has a Judicial Center that provides improved efficiencies for the courts and equally and perhaps more importantly, improves safety and security. Safety and security for all. The public to come here, our judges, jurors, defendants, attorneys, and county offices with their employees and their staff. In closing, December 2015, we broke ground for this building. And now, August 15th, 2017, approximately 20 months later, we are here to dedicate the Crawford County Judicial Center. To each and every one of you, thank you for sharing this day with us.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will call upon Keith Button, who's the current president of the Crawford County Bar Association, for some comments. Keith.
Good morning, everyone. First, on behalf of the entire Crawford County Bar Association, I'd like to thank all the individuals who have worked so hard over the better part of the last decade, really, to make this day a reality. It took a lot of cooperation, a lot of compromise, and a lot of really inventive problem solving to get this project off the ground and ultimately bring it to fruition. I'm proud that I get the opportunity to work with many of these people every day, both our present and former commissioners, and their chief clerk and assistants, our 3 judges and their staff, our court administrator, our row officers, everyone in the county's finance office and maintenance department, and many others too numerous to mention. This Judicial Center will be and should be a source of pride for Crawford County's residents for many years to come. It brings our county into the 21st century in terms of both security and technology, with much needed improvements and modernization in both of those areas. But just as importantly, it's a symbol of our willingness and desire to continue moving forward when change is really the only constant in our lives. I know the last 2 months have been exhausting for virtually everyone who's had to make the move over to this new Judicial Center. Packing up and moving out of a home you've been in for over 60 years was never going to be easy. But hopefully the most difficult part is over now, and you can enjoy coming to work and smelling new carpet and fresh paint on the walls. Again, on behalf of the entire Bar Association, we thank you for enduring through all those changes. I've been practicing law now for just over 20 years. Assuming good health, that means I'm just about at the halfway point of my career. Having all these new offices and courtrooms to walk into is somehow kind of rejuvenating, even though I'm still doing the same things every day. I told my wife it's kind of like that feeling our cats get when we rearrange the furniture in our living room. At any rate, I bet that I'm not the only Crawford County lawyer walking into this building that feels that renewed sense of pride and that little bit of extra purpose that comes from working in and around the beating heart of Crawford County. We know it was a lot of work for many of you, but on behalf of the entire Crawford County Bar, we thank you all for investing so much of your time and your energy and your patience to bring us to this day. It's an investment that now that we can all appreciate for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call forward our district court administrator for some comments, and I just want to preface it by saying that she's been probably one of the people most instrumental in making this happen. She was kind of thrust into this as she became a district court administrator. Our former court administrator, many of you knew, John Shuttleworth, became terminally ill in late 2014. And throughout that year, really wasn't able to help us too much. And Heidi Scheiterle took over and continued that after his death, and has continued this project right up to today. And frankly, I think I'll talk about it some more later, but we really wouldn't have this completed the way it is without her help. So I call upon Heidi for some comments.
Good morning, Madam Justice Todd, Crawford County Common Pleas judges, guest Common Pleas judges, and Crawford County Magisterial District judges, elected officials, and guests. Good morning and welcome to today's celebration. The National Center for State Courts says that a well-designed courthouse facility has the ability to embody the court's essential principles of openness and fairness, providing accessibility and security, while allowing the judicial process to move forward unhindered and with increased efficiency and effectiveness. Those of us involved in the shepherding of this project have done our best to accomplish this in a fiscally responsible way. As you tour the building today, you'll see and hear about some special security features which were not in the courthouse. Many people who come through our doors do so on some of the most stressful days of their lives. We want to make sure that their safety is not something they worry about while they're here. This building is also fully accessible, from doorways to countertops to drinking fountains. You'll see more meeting rooms so that attorneys and clients can have private conversations, and so that parties on opposite sides of a matter can have some space from each other outside their actual hearings. With the private corridor, little Johnny, who comes here for his adoption hearing, doesn't have to see defendants in shackles on their way to another courtroom that day. Thanks to the magisterial district judges of our judicial district, we also have digital signage, in addition to standard directional signage, to help you more easily find your courtroom and hearings, to post announcements and other important information. Watch for that today as you tour near the public elevators on every floor and outside each of the courtrooms. We now have a jury assembly room, because try as we might to limit it, there's always some waiting around involved in jury service. And now those who report to perform their civic duty will have a more friendly and comfortable space to do so. I have to say, this project has been quite a process over the last 20 months or so, and we've had some real adventures along the way. There was that time last fall after I'd broken my ankle that someone decided I absolutely needed to lay personal eyes on something at the site. And they said, "Can you get there?" And I said, "Sure, I can get there on crutches, but you'll need something for me to sit down on because I'm not going to be able to stand on one leg the whole time." And we did, but I have to say, I don't recommend trying to accessorize with both crutches and a hard hat at the same time. There have been countless meetings through this process, the worst one of which was probably the first meeting, and I stress the first meeting, regarding door access, which lasted over 3 hours to cover some 192 doors in this building. After a meeting like that, someone will send out a summary and say, "Here, we need your approval on this." A vast spreadsheet came listing all 192 doors, and I looked at it and say, "I don't speak locksmith. I was at that meeting. I took good notes, and everything we called, everything is not what's listed on this sheet. I don't know how to approve this." Then there were the times when I would actually get to walk the site in the evenings, usually after hours, and send out little messages on discoveries I would make, and occasionally that resulted in a, "Houston, do we have a problem here?" Too many of those, and someone would say, "Just go home already." I would like to offer special thanks to a few people today, to Commissioner Stoff for helping me finalize furniture purchases when dancing as fast as I could just wasn't enough, to my staff for keeping the boat afloat while I quite literally at times spun from one meeting to the next and wasn't able to help with the day-to-day operations, to Brian Noah of PJ Dick, the county's project manager. Whenever I made a few too many of those discoveries at night, Brian was there to suggest a glass of wine or two might make things look better in the morning. Mark Phelan of County Maintenance for helping me orchestrate the move and always having a "whatever you need" for me. And Steve Burdick, Weber Murphy Fox's site supervisor. Just because they give you the keys to the building doesn't mean that everything's ready to go, believe it or not. Steve's been a real godsend, particularly in the last couple of months. Steve, whatever they're paying you, it's not enough. And I know you've figured that out. Congratulations on your retirement. And I choose to believe we're not the reason for the timing. Lastly, I'd like to specially thank President Judge Vidaro. I would not have been able to do what I have done the last couple of years if we didn't work so well together. With that, I invite you to see our building, even as I request your patience in the coming months as we hit our milestones in our new home. First call of the list, first jury trials. We're going to have some learning to do. We have to learn new systems, new processes, new equipment in some cases. You might even on occasion see a staff member pull up short, trying to remember exactly where they are and how to get where they want to be, because even we're still learning our way around here. We welcome you to our Judicial Center, where we pledge to do our best to those essential principles of the court. We're fortunate to be making this mark on history, thanks to the leadership of our county commissioners and common pleas judges.
Thank you, Heidi. Justice Deborah McCloskey Todd is a graduate of Chatham College with a Bachelor of Arts degree with honors in 1979, a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh School of Law in 1982 on Law Review. Always happy to have a Pitt grad here, there are too many of us. University of Virginia School of Law with an LLM in 2004. After she was a litigation attorney for U.S. Steel and then in private practice for several years, she was elected as a judge of the Pennsylvania Superior Court in 1999. She served on that court until her election to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania in 2007, where she continues to serve. It's my pleasure to welcome Madam Justice Todd for some special remarks.
Thank you very much, President Judge Vidaro. It is truly my pleasure and my honor to be here with you today. I thank you, President Judge, for inviting me. I thank you, Judge Spatar and Judge Stevens, for sharing your bench with me today. I bring you greetings from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, from Chief Justice Tom Saylor, and from my colleagues on our fully complemented 7-member bench. We aren't always at full strength, but we have been now at our full complement of 7, and it has been a tremendous pleasure to operate in that manner. I wanted to personally tell you that all of the justices would have liked to have been here with you today, and they all, including the Chief Justice, send their greetings and their congratulations. So congratulations, Crawford County. This is such a wonderful day. We in the judiciary face a lot of serious matters, and I would say I speak for all my fellow judges who are here in saying that many of our days are not filled with happiness and celebration. We have very serious matters that come before us, and some days are not happy days. This is a happy day, and I was so thrilled to have the opportunity to be here with all of you to celebrate. What a glorious facility this is. Now, it may be called Crawford County Judicial Center, but when I look at it, I can see it truly is the people's courthouse. Every effort has been taken, and it seems like it has been such a joint effort with the commissioners, the court staff, the judges, to arrive at something that is a facility that you can all be proud of, a facility that provides access to justice. And I'm not sure that you're aware, Pennsylvania is the 4th oldest state in the United States. And our elderly population continues to grow each year. In Pennsylvania and in the United States, if you are 60 or older, you are categorized as an elder. So if you're not an elder now, God willing, you will become one. And when we see the elderly population growing in Pennsylvania, and we see the challenges that elders face, particularly with access to justice, it just warms my heart to see a facility like this specifically designed to provide access to everyone. To see a facility with this degree of security, the thought that went into providing safety for our judges, for our jurors, for our litigants, and for all of those who come into the People's Courthouse, it's wonderful to see all the security efforts that went into it. And finally, the technology. I know we all love the beautiful old courthouses, and you certainly have one here in Crawford County. And nothing can compare, and I know we have nostalgia for those beautiful old architecturally designed, fabulous, historic buildings. However, when we look at the needs of today, access to justice, security, safety, and technology, you really would have a hard time achieving that in an old building. And what you have accomplished here with this Judicial Center and all the years of hard work and planning is a model accomplishment for other counties in Pennsylvania to look to and for Crawford County to be proud of. You have a rich history here on the Court of Common Pleas. You have a rich history here in the county. Our court, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, also has a rich history. We were founded by William Penn. We started as William Penn's provincial court in the late 1600s. And the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, as it's now known, was formed in 1722 under the authority of the Pennsylvania Judiciary Act of 1722. So we have a rich history as, in fact, the oldest Supreme Court in the United States, even older than the U.S. Supreme Court. So I'm very proud and privileged to serve on a court that is nearly 300 years old. And in fact, God willing, I'm in line to become the first female Chief Justice of Pennsylvania. So after almost 300 years, I think that's about time. We value history. We look to the beautiful history in Crawford County and in Pennsylvania, but we also value progress and we look to the future. And in my estimation, there couldn't be a better place to work toward that future than right here in this Judicial Center. So thank you again. It was my honor to be here.
Thank you so much, Justice Todd. Justice Todd, fellow Common Pleas judges who have traveled here so far to be with us today and taken time from your busy schedules, magisterial district judges likewise, Father Trocio, commissioners, Mr. Mayor and other elected officials, members of the Bar Association who have assembled, and all those in attendance today, either here or through the delay programming through Armstrong, welcome. I'm going to say some things, and I'll try not to be repetitive because obviously some things have already been said, and we all have them in our notes, and then somebody else says it. But I think some of the things are important that they bear repeating. This is an historic day in Crawford County history and in Crawford County court history. The last time that the citizens gathered to dedicate a new judicial facility was on October 23rd, 1954. I was just 6 months old at the time and therefore decided not to attend. I did email former President Judge Gordon Miller about the Judicial Center. We emailed back and forth a bit, and he remembered being here with his parents at a ceremony, but he wasn't specific about where the ceremony was, whether it was in a courtroom, whether it was outside. He didn't really seem to mention that or know that. Obviously, the structure that was dedicated at that time was the one next door, which was it had expanded the prior existing courthouse and created a second courtroom in the wings as Judge Spataro talked about. There was a several-page dedication handbook produced at that time for the dedication, and it has photos of the various offices and the people that worked in the offices and everything from judges to school board members, and it covered a lot of things, but there was, as far as we could tell, no actual recorded history of the dedication ceremony to know what was said, what was done. We looked for that and there wasn't anything. So one of the things that we decided to make sure we did was do that for this time so that in 60 years or whenever the next group gathers to dedicate a new facility, there'll be some historical record of what happened on this day and who was here and what was talked about. So that's why we have a court reporter, and that's why we've put this program together and make sure that we do have that. Those of you who know me know that typically I don't talk a lot. I don't say a lot, and I don't go on for a long time. I'm going to do a little bit of that today because of the historical significance of this and to make sure that we leave that history for those who come later. So please bear with me. Today we completed a journey that's really taken over 30 years to get to. And you ask, what do I mean by that? Some of you may remember the building that sat where this building now rests. It was called Lawyers Row, and some of the lawyers that have been in the bar for longer will remember that. It was a yellow stone structure with a long porch along the front of the entire front of the building. It had several small offices. And as the name would suggest, it was generally occupied by lawyers. I had my first 2 offices in that building in 1979 into 1980. At that time, few of the offices had running water. I think maybe 1 or 2 of the probably 10 offices. And sometime shortly after I left that building to move on, the commissioners decided that there was a need to expand the courthouse, so the then commissioners purchased the building and demolished it with the intention, as I remember, of building an annex to the existing courthouse and connecting them across East Center Street. As happens often in county government, there were only funds to do certain projects, and there were understandably delays in that process because there were more important needs. There was a new care center that was built, a new correctional facility built, in each case to replace very outdated facilities. Over the years, the courthouse became more and more overcrowded, and in part that was dealt with by locating offices outside of the building. Part of the adult probation office, all of the juvenile probation office, and domestic relations. Part of the adult probation office ended up in the old jail, or part of the old jail, and ultimately had to be moved because that facility was in such deplorable condition. Obviously, growth occurs over the years. The adult probation office, for instance, when you look at the 1954 dedication booklet, there was one adult probation officer, and they showed him in his office. When I was an intern at Allegheny College in 1976, I interned for a full year in that office, and at that time my recollection is there were 3 or 4 full-time officers and 1 part-time officer who really didn't work in the office. He was a school teacher who worked part-time after school. There was also 1 administrative assistant. Today we've grown to 30 employees in that office by necessity because of the growth and the need to have that type of people working with people that are on probation and on parole and are coming back into the community. So we have 30 employees, about 23 officers and 7 clerical staff, including a clerical supervisor. Throughout those years, there has been similar growth in other areas of the system. And the needs, as the needs for courts have arisen more and more, people rely on us more and more to solve problems. I think we all recognize that something had to be done, but that these kind of projects cannot happen until a Board of Commissioners decide that they can fund such a project, recognizing the need to carefully spend the taxpayers' money. Sometime in 2009, I think it was measured, I wasn't sure if it was 2009 or 2010, but I think Commissioner Wiederspan said 2009, that seems to be about right. An earlier Board of Commissioners, chaired by Commissioner Morris Wade, and including Jack Preston, who's here with us today, and Sherman Allen, started to move toward a resolution of the space problem at the Crawford County Courthouse. In late 2010, they asked to meet with the judges to discuss a couple of alternatives they had for expansion, and I believe that meeting took place in early 2011. As was mentioned, a decision at that time was to form a citizens committee to look at what the need was, if there was one, and how best to meet that need. That committee had several citizens of the county, including representation from the commissioners, obviously, as that was appointed by the commissioners, and our former court administrator, John Shuttleworth, was part of that. The result later that year in 2011 was that there was clearly a need to do something, and there was a suggestion as to what to do at that time. In 2012, with the retirement of Commissioners Wade and Preston, Commissioner Wiederspan was joined with Commissioner Jack Lynch and Sherman Allen on a board chaired by Mr. Wiederspan. And that board continued to research what to do about the problem. There were many discussions and many meetings between the Board of Commissioners and the court. There were countless meetings with the architects. Sometimes we agreed, sometimes we didn't. Some of the meetings were heated at times, but we were all working toward a common goal of the commissioners and the court. Ultimately, after all of that discussion, the commissioners decided a new judicial center on this piece of land was the answer, and work began with a strong input from the court to make it a structure that could serve the citizens in the most efficient way and the safest way within a budget the commissioners felt could be handled by the citizens of this county. Rest assured that all of us involved in this project have been and continue to be aware that we are spending tax dollars that come from our hardworking citizens, and every decision was made by everyone involved with that in mind. A plan was ultimately arrived at, and as it was indicated, ground was broken in late 2015, and we began occupying this building in mid-June of this year. The current Board of Commissioners, chaired again by Commissioner Wiederspan, along with John Amato and Christopher Soff, carried on the plan that had been developed by that middle Board of Commissioners and put in place by that board when ground was broke in December of 2015. Throughout the construction, there has been constant involvement with the court, the commissioners, and the architects to try to refine the structure and to furnish it as efficiently and cost-effectively as possible. As you tour the building today, you will see some new furnishings and many others that we carried over from the old courthouse. We tried to use what we could to save taxpayers' dollars. The commissioners greatly helped us when they bought out the lease of a former tenant at the Talon building owned by them and got some older but beautiful furniture we were able to use. So now we have begun our use of this beautiful facility. We do so with very great gratitude to all three boards of commissioners who kept this project alive, recognizing that while it's not always popular to spend taxpayers' money, sometimes it's necessary. We are very fortunate that during all that change in the Office of the Commissioners, this project continued to move forward. Each of those 7 men over the last 3 boards of commissioners committed to do the right thing, and as such we are here today, and we thank them very much for that. As you tour this facility, you will see that because the court has been given a chance to have significant input into the facility, it will recognize that in today's day and age, public buildings and specifically offices housing court facilities demand a higher level of security and safety than ever before. The entrance to this facility and other aspects provide state-of-the-art security as it should be. We consulted with the Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts. We utilized the expertise of our sheriff and others to come up with the safest structure that we can within the budget that we have. As has been indicated, no longer will those in custody of the sheriff travel through public elevators and walk through public hallways and use public restrooms. No longer will our children be in the hallway for some proceeding when they witness prisoners coming by in shackles and handcuffs. My first grandson, Julius, is here today. He's 27 months old today. I would never want him to experience what other children have experienced, seeing people in shackles in our courthouse. You will also see a special room with a comforting atmosphere and lots of toys and books and puzzles for our children. I'm sorry, this has just been a very emotional time. You will see a facility with much technology designed to allow lawyers to try cases efficiently and to allow the court to save time in orienting juries. And those who work here will be able to perform their duties better in an environment that has been created. Further, has been indicated, thanks to our magisterial district judges, we have technology that allows the public to display throughout the facility in space available for training our staff. There are private rooms, as have been indicated, so lawyers can meet with their clients and not interact. Folks often don't know the type of interaction that occurs in the hallways in family law cases, domestic relations cases, where there are 2 different sides. We now have a way to keep those folks separate and safe so they can meet with their lawyers. The other thing that we brought back was many years ago in the old building there was a wonderful lawyers lounge, so lawyers could just go there and relax and talk to fellow lawyers. Over the years, we made that smaller and smaller. We took windows away, we took space away, we took the bathroom away, just because we needed the space. And now they have a beautiful facility in this building. No longer do they have to interview clients in that room. That's what ended up occurring, is that lawyers would have to bring their clients into the room that was intended to be for lawyers. Now they have a private space with their own bathroom, their own little kitchen area, and their own furnishings, because they furnished it themselves with the furniture through their own funds. So it is indeed an improvement for them and all lawyers who visit here. The budget for this building was $17 million, and that's a lot of money. All of us recognized it, and we did our best to spend it well. We got a lot of building for that money that should serve the next 2 or 3 generations. We owe that to those generations. Times change, the needs of the public change. I believe I read in the 1954 booklet that the old courthouse cost about $1.1 million to renovate. But then I did a little research, and in 1954 a postage stamp cost 3 cents. And a gallon of gas was 21 cents. So that kind of puts it into perspective. The other thing that was kind of interesting that we don't need anymore, we were able to use space for other things, is if you look at the 1954 booklet, you will see that there is a dormitory. So that when jurors were required to work overnight, there were cots in this big area, which I think is either the sheriff's office, over their former sheriff's office, or the planning office. Somewhere on the 3rd floor, there's this stark room with cots. So I'm glad those days are gone. When you tour the building, you will note that there is a display case on the 1st or 2nd level, which has a lot of memorabilia about over the years of the courthouse. You'll see a photograph in there, for instance, of the last motion court in 1951 before they remodeled the old building. And we tried to replicate that recently by gathering the Bar Association to basically take the same photographs. It's a 3-part photograph with the judges sitting on the bench, the lawyers assembled for a photograph, and then just a picture of the empty courtroom. And we're going to try to put that together to replicate it because we have the photographs to do that. And so we dedicate this building with much thanks to the 3 boards of commissioners that saw it through and the public who paid for it. In bringing my comments to a close, other than some thank yous, I do not want to lose sight of the tasks that remain undone. I realize there's still more to do with this project. Parking lots need to be built, and demolishing of the old jail is part of that process, and the commissioners are working on that. But I also want to remember, I want it to be remembered that originally the plan when we built this building was to remodel the existing courthouse to bring back the adult probation office, the juvenile probation office, and the domestic relations office to allow for a more efficient operation with them in close proximity to the Judicial Center. That was put off at the time of the construction of this building began, and I encourage the commissioners to address that over the next few years. While I recommended at that time that we should occupy this building with certain offices, that was done with that renovation in mind, so that we had offices brought in here with the idea that we were going to be able to bring those offices back to the courthouse once that was renovated. We know we should not be in a position where we have adult probation in 2 different locations. We need to get that, and I encourage the commissioners, recognizing there's a lot to do, and even on this building there's a lot to do, that we need to be able to do that. I also encourage the commissioners to move at least 1 magisterial district judge office into the existing courthouse, perhaps a 2nd with the permission of the Supreme Court. It just makes sense. Since this court outgrew that building, there remains 3 courtrooms in the courthouse, and we should have at least 1 available, and we need to have one available for emergency planning, as we're required to do by the AOPC, or the Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts. By making some of these changes, we can save rent, and we can move off or sell buildings that the county has had to purchase as we outgrew the old courthouse. I look forward to working with commissioners and others to help the administration of justice be better in those projects over the years. So down to some thanks. Buildings like this require many, all who plan it, all who work hours. We worked endless hours with Weber Murphy Fox and various representatives and architects, all who labored on this building. We all watched it grow, and so many people put their labor into this building. I want to thank my colleagues on the court for their help and their insight. I have to say, Judge Stevens finds things I never would have found. When he looks at a building, he's able to point out things that I just never would have thought of, and I appreciated everything that they did. The Information Technology Department. They have been wonderful. When a change like this, there's so much that has to happen that they've been wonderful in trying to do that. I want to give some special thanks, and Heidi's already done it to some extent, but it's important that I do it, to people who stepped up as the deadlines quickly came and we had to furnish this place. Mark Peaster, the assistant to the commissioners, poured through materials to find the options, wrote the RFPs, did everything he could to get us here. Commissioner Soft stepped up, became much more involved in the process than I'm sure he ever wanted to be, but he helped us get to the furniture that we needed. Mark Phelan and his crew stepped up to make sure that everything got moved and endless moving, and Tim Valensic and Steve Petruso got everything from the flags to the benches to squeaky furniture ready for this very big building. And there are two men who here in very different roles but work together to do just what anything anybody needed. And Heidi's mentioned them, but I will endlessly be thankful to Steve Burdick who from Weber Murphy Fox and Brian Noah from PJ Dick, a firm retained by the commissioners to represent them. Together they made things happen above and beyond. They cut wainscoting to make sure the bookshelves fit. They sawed down council tables that were too tall. The other day, Steve went home and cut some little pieces to fill in where I asked the door be removed for the jurors, and we had hinge marks. He filled those in. Whatever you asked them, they did. Sometimes they look at you like, really? But they still did it, and it all got done, and I really appreciated that. And I think probably we are the reason why Steve is retiring, because we probably put him over the edge, and we thank you both for everything you've done. My thanks to the court staff. Obviously, this is a required above and beyond the call of duty for the things that you've had to do. You stepped up when needed, even to the point where they've organized cookies today for the open house downstairs. They've all baked cookies to help with that whole project. And it's just, they've all been there and we appreciate it. It's hard for everybody when you do this kind of move. My tip staffs, Chuck Smith and Pam Curtis, they've been here as we've moved in, and they've learned all the technology and tried to keep us moving when we couldn't be heard on microphones and things that we've had to do with the help of everybody to really get that all together. My administrative assistant, Nanette, this is not the project you signed up for. She mentioned to me yesterday she just wants to get back to president judge work and court work, and would be happy to have this all over with, as will I. So I really appreciate everything that you've done above and beyond. Now the last two people I need to acknowledge, one professionally and one personally. I mentioned already Court Administrator Heidi Scheiterle. She was serving as the deputy when the court administrator was diagnosed with a terminal illness in October of 2014, just as this project was moving forward. She worked on the project as well as the other court administrator duties while he was ill, and ultimately when he passed away, she took over as court administrator. She had to do a lot. It's not easy to be a court administrator, but it's even harder to take over a building project like this, and she has worked tirelessly hours to make this happen. All of us have received her midnight emails, so we know how long she works and how many hours she put in, the effort that she put in to this project. And I will be forever grateful to you, Heidi, for everything that you've done, because this project would not have been completed without your efforts. To my wife, Kathy. She'd endured this project. I've often told her it's like building 20 houses. She's listened to me bounce ideas off of her, and she put up with me waking up at all hours of the night to write notes about this project, because that's when I do my best thinking, unfortunately. She stepped up to do things I cannot get done because of meetings or work on this project, and most importantly, she's been there when it frustrated me, and she always reminded me, we have a duty to leave this world better for our children and our grandchildren. Thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those excellent remarks. I can't help, after hearing the reference you made to the dormitories in the courthouse, I have to tell the story, and please bear with me on this. I cannot vouch for the truthfulness of the story or the accuracy of the story, but some time ago, this is what I had heard. I'd heard that a presiding judge had a jury trial taking place, and the jurors had come back and they indicated to the judge during their deliberations, Your Honor, we're deadlocked. We just cannot seem to be able to make a decision. And the presiding judge said, I understand, this is a difficult case. I'll ask the tipstaff to assemble the cots so that you can stay overnight in the facility we have for you upstairs. To which the jury foreperson said, just give us a few more minutes, Judge. I would like deeply to thank each and every one of you for coming here and participating, and those of you who were engaged in the project for all of your outstanding work in the development of this project. This is a momentous day in the history of Crawford County, and we are very grateful.
Thank you.
Well, we all have different skill sets. Brevity isn't one of mine. I want to make just a few comments, and I think that they're worth noting. But before I do that, I want to say what a distinct pleasure it is and to work alongside and under the mentorship of and with both Judge Vidaro and Spataro. Crawford County is really blessed. They're phenomenal judges that work every day hard to do what needs to be done. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank my wife, Jennifer. I tend to be a little bit of a control freak and not great with change, so this was not one of those things that fell well on my radar, but we've made it through so far, and I appreciate that. It meant a lot. I've always felt that the law and the practice of law play a special part in the structure of any community. I believe fundamentally that a courthouse or judicial center is symbolic of, or maybe even an embodiment of the importance that law plays in our society. Courthouses, by definition, need to be functional and efficient, safe and accessible, but they also have to mean something. When people come to the courthouse, they are often scared, emotional at the rawest points of their lives. Generally speaking, a major event has happened to them or with them or for them, and it will impact potentially them and their families for literally decades that will follow. Therefore, I believe that it is critically important that the community be proud of where justice is administered. That the courthouse, judicial center, be a place where all parties, regardless of age, culture, education, income, feel that they will be heard and treated fairly. Welcome. I think it's important the community be able to look at this judicial center and know that it stands for the fundamental rights that have been entrusted to us as members of our society, and that anyone can come here to access justice. The building should symbolically say, come here when you're at your most vulnerable, when you need the help or protection of the law. Come here and be safe. Come here to settle those disputes you can't settle on your own. Come here because higher principles apply when you walk in these doors. Your rights are protected here, even when unpopular or uncomfortable. This building should, and I believe does, say, this is a place where ideas and facts are more important than brute strength, where logical arguments beat out who you know. I believe the building, with the help of those that serve inside of it every day, can and will make people inspired, reverent, and respectful, proud of what goes on, and importantly, accepting of the fairness of the process and hopefully the justness of the results. It needs to be a place they know is and feels special. The citizens of Crawford County who use this building will be proud of it. There's no doubt in my mind about that. The citizens of Crawford County who don't use this building, don't feel the need, should nonetheless still be proud of it. Know that this is a place where families and friends, neighbors are able to seek help when needed in a structure that is designed to efficiently, safely, and respectfully resolve their issues. The citizens of Crawford County should be proud of this building and the work that goes in it. I hope they're proud of too. But understand as you tour this building that it says the law is important to our community. The fundamental purpose of this building should be clear for generations to come. There have been so many people to thank along the way that I'm not going to try to do that. But I will say a special thank you to Judge Vidaro. He has worked tirelessly. That's a word you've heard, but tirelessly. He has been dedicated to this project in a way that is hard to imagine. But importantly, I guess, for me, he's never let up on the obligations of being a judge. He's done that all while juggling those balls. And I think that's really an amazing tribute. And I appreciate his friendship and the work that he has done. Finally, I'd like to thank the citizens of Crawford County for the respect that I know they will give this building now and for the decades that follow. Thanks.
Thank you, Judge Stevens. I guess it's time to bring this program to a close, and I think our facility is now duly dedicated, and we have a history to present to the future for those to see in the future. You're all invited to a reception in the jury assembly room on the 3rd level, which is the floor below us. This is courtesy of AVI Food Systems, which provides the vending for this building and the courthouse, Weber Murphy Fox, the architects, and PJ Dick Incorporated. Self-guided tours are available from now until 1 p.m. and then again from 2:30 to 5 p.m. This floor will be closed to the tour for a short period of time, but then it'll be available for you to see. So I now adjourn this special session of court, and I ask that you please do not disperse until all of the judges have left the courtroom. Thank you.